It's the big news coming in that the remission of these 11 gang rapists, convicts involved in murder as well of family members of a child as well, that remission has been quashed. Does that mean that they return to prison right away? Is there another legal approach here that the convicts can avail, or this is it?
Well, Pooja, of course, they can go ahead and file a review petition asking for this judgment to be considered again. But for now, it seems like they will have to go back to prison. The logistics and exactly by when they will have to surrender and make sure they go back behind the bars are some details that are going to come out once the judgment copy is released by the Supreme Court. But at the same time, the Supreme Court has made some very, very stringent remarks, not only against the convicts, where they have said that the convicts misled the courts. They, in fact, misrepresented the facts, and they tried to make it so that the Gujarat government is the government that considers as to whether or not they should be released. But the Supreme Court has very categorically held that the Gujarat government was not the appropriate government to make this decision, and on that aspect alone, the entire remission order that was granted with respect to these 11 convicts can be quashed. In addition to that, Justice Nagarthana has also gone ahead to the extent of saying that there was fraud that was played in this court. There was no specific
Nalini, stay on with me because I'm going across to Gujarat now, to Godhra, where this incident had taken place. There are reactions coming in from there. Let's dip into that.
अभी 10-15 दिन के यहाँ नहीं है, गुजरात बाहर है।
आप भी क्या कहेंगे, क्योंकि आप भी गवाह के तौर पे इस केस में जुड़े थे। आपके गांव में एक एसआरपीएफ की एक पॉइंट भी बनाई गई थी आप लोगों की सुरक्षा के लिए, जब 11 लोग जो कैदी थे, जो जिन्हें गुजरात सरकार ने आरोप बाहर की तरफ लाया था, और अब जब फैसला आ गया है सुप्रीम कोर्ट का, कितनी राहत आपको भी अब फील हो रही है?
जो कोर्ट ने जो भी सुना है फैसला, वो सही है।
क्या कहेंगे, कितने दिनों में फिर से इनको सलाखों के पीछे भेजना चाहिए, क्योंकि अभी ये स्पष्टता नहीं हो पाई है?
वो तो जब कोर्ट का निर्णय आएगा तब पता चलेगा।
तो और भी लोग आप देख सकते हैं कि जहां बिल्किस बानू पिछले 10 से 15 दिनों पहले रहती थी, ये उन्हीं के परिवार के लोग हैं, और ये कुछ वो गवाह हैं जो कि इस केस में गवाही कोर्ट में भी देते रहे हैं। और पिछले अगर कुछ सालों से बात करें तो लगभग 10 से 15 बार बिल्किस बानू और उनके परिवार को अलग अलग जगहों पे रहने की जरूरत पड़ी थी। आपको मैं फिर से वो एक एसआरपी की पॉइंट भी दिखाऊंगा, मेरे सहयोगी साजिद जी को मैं कहूंगा आपको वो पॉइंट भी बताएंगे कि जो 5 साल से ये जो पुलिस का पॉइंट है जो कि गवाहों की सुरक्षा के लिए यहाँ पे दिया गया था, वो यहाँ से बंद कर दिया गया है। फिलहाल इस सुरक्षा पॉइंट पे कोई पुलिसकर्मी नहीं रहता, और पिछले जिस तरह से लगभग 1.25 साल का वक्त हो चुका है, और यहाँ पे जो आरोपी थे वो भी उनको मुक्त कर दिया गया था फिलहाल। और एक बार जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने अपना फैसला भी ले लिया है, तब एक बार फिर से कहीं ना कहीं जो बिल्किस बानू और उनसे जुड़े लोग और खास करके जो गवाह हैं वो भी कहीं ना कहीं खुश है, और वो बात यही कर रहे हैं कि उनको यकीन था।
So this is a ground report and update coming in from where Bilkis Bano had lived earlier and has moved location. But remember, it is as much for the petitioners who united and put forth those petitions at the Supreme Court. Subhashini Ali was one of those petitioners. She's been a women's rights activist as well. Subhashini Ali, what does this moment mean to you right now when these rapists of a young Bilkis Bano, who was 5 months pregnant, not only was gang raped, her family members killed, her own 3-year-old child was brutally murdered, and she'll now watch the rapists go back behind to the prison?
Well, I'm now going back to that time because we had gone in a delegation of Edwa to Godhra, to the camp. We met Bilkis there, and you can imagine what her condition was. I'm just reminded of that, what she was like then. That whole picture is in front of me. It's extremely saddening, the amount she has had to fight. And today I'm still waiting to get all the details of the judgment, but it appears as if the Supreme Court has upheld the view that there was the way in which those criminals were released was not correct, and it seems that they will be sent back to jail. That's what I'm hoping. I'm just waiting to get all the details still, but certainly it seems like a big step forward has been made today. But I mean, when you think of the enormity of the crime, when you think of the enormity of this woman's suffering, you can only salute her courage in continuing her fight. She fought for 8 years to get them convicted, and she's had to come back to the Supreme Court to, see that conviction continues. and that they remain at least with some peace of mind in their own homes, which they have been denied for such a long time.
Do you think this also needs to become a precedent in a way, not just, of course, in this case, but also that such gruesome incidents, even though there is a remission policy, but it needs to be there has to be a very definite reason for a premature release of convicts of this gruesome nature?
Much more serious than that. The whole behavior of the Gujarat government has come under the scanner. Why did they go to such lengths to release these people? That is a big question. They broke so many rules in their absolute obsession with getting these terrible people who had committed this unbelievable crime against humanity to get them out of jail. Why? That is the question that people in India and women in India must ask themselves. What was their reason for this? Why were they so committed to getting them out of jail? Why were they so committed in trying to prove to the world that they are kind of innocent people, or they just did something that was a little bit wrong and they should be given a chance to correct themselves? These are the big questions.
I appreciate you joining us, Subhashini Ali. Yes, one of the petitioners, and it's been a long fight, of course, as much as she says is for Bilkis Bano, brave fight for her, but as much for the petitioners too. Zeenat Shaukat Ali is also joining. Zeenat, you've been one of those liberal voices, you've been a staunch women's rights activist, and when you look at how these convicts were given a release on a remission policy by the government of Gujarat, but now the court says it cannot happen. One, they're saying, how can a different government that did not have the sentencing when it was involved in that give out this reason? What is your first comment today when the court announced these men have to go back into prison?
I think it is a very, very welcome step that has been taken. It should have been taken some time back. It is not only a woman's right, it is a justice problem also. And, Bilkis Bano's child has been killed. There have been enough witnesses. There has been so much support, and there has been, this kind of a judgment in the first instance, which released them. That also was very questionable. But today, the very fact that it is being reviewed and it's being looked back into, and these criminals, whoever they are, we have to now learn to cut across religion, and we have to learn to cut across, any kind of social standing that one might have. Cutting across all that, justice is what we are seeking. And here the justice says that, those criminals who have committed these kind of crimes should not be exonerated under any circumstances. So I think
yes. Do you think because this time the court has said, the court's remark was that this was a Gujarat government that had given the remission, it was not in its jurisdiction. But do you think because there is a remission policy that, as the court has said, if the criminal is curable, this policy can be put to use? But do you think that's where it needs to be very clearly thought out of who can this policy be used for?
I think yes. I think that your point is absolutely on the dot. When this kind of a policy is brought into existence, one has to see to it that it has to be extremely carefully looked into. But these guys who were released, their records were clearly stating what they had done. You see, so I think that there was no justice. Definitely was denied, and I think that the remission policy, as you said, must be looked into. But at the same time, now for this particular kind of a case and for this extreme understanding, that was through which she was tortured, executed, not able to live her entire life. And I tell you, she needs a salute from everyone that she's been able to fight it out, live it out, and yet seek justice. So I think it's a very welcome step that has been taken.
Stay on with me because, you've made such an important point. What a brave fight it must have been for this young woman who was herself pregnant at that point, lost her child, a 3-year-old, also 7 of her family members so brutally killed. It's a horror that she has lived with ever since and fought for to ensure the convicts are behind prison. But also reminder of our judiciary, of the cognizance it's taken, but also the words that it has given.